Hello everyone, I'm standing outside of Oudtshoorn, which is the ostrich capital of the world. This town has the largest population of ostriches on the entire planet. Crazy!
If you stick around, I'm going to show you around this tremendously interesting town and tell you all about its fascinating history and the fact that it owes its existence to the insatiable appetite for feathers in one's hat in Europe in the late 19th century. From there onwards, we are going to visit the Cango Caves and descend into the deepest depths of the Earth's crust to view some miraculous formations that took thousands and millions of years to form. So stick around, guys, if you want to be bedazzled by the wonders of Oudtshoorn and all the fantastic things you can do around here.
This town experienced two massive ostrich feather booms at the end of the 18th, no, at the end of the 19th and at the beginning of the 20th century due to a massive feather demand from Europe. I'm standing outside a beautiful example of a feather palace in Oudtshoorn. Wearing ostrich feathers in your hat became very fashionable in Europe, and the price for these feathers skyrocketed, making the local ostrich farmers here a very, very rich indeed, and also convincing any other type of farmer to rip out their crops and start planting lucerne, which is food for ostriches. Now, at the height of the booms, the farmers here were making so much money. They were bathing in brandy and decorating their houses with pound notes as wallpaper. It was crazy times. And they built themselves fabulous, opulent feather palaces here in Oudtshoorn and also on their farms out in the middle of nowhere. There are a couple of beautiful examples of these feather palaces left, and if you, I'm sure, play your cards right, you might even run into a feather baron and hopefully get to marry him one day.
Between 1875 and 1880, ostrich prices reached up to 1,000 Great British pounds per pair. The value of ostrich feathers per pound equaled almost that of diamonds. That's totally insane. Such was the worth of the white ostrich feather that it was dubbed white gold. Of course, when everybody gets on the bandwagon, that's when everything goes wrong. And owing to overproduction, the ostrich industry experienced a sudden slump in fortunes in 1885. The ostrich industry recovered slowly, owing in part to the Second Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902. But the second boom that started after the war was even bigger than the first one. It was also during this period that the feather barons, the ostrich farmers who had become so fabulously wealthy, built most of Oudtshoorn's famously opulent feather palaces. The really big ones are built further outside of Oudtshoorn on the actual farms, and they do resemble a bit something called a McMansion, if you know what I mean. For 40 years, Oudtshoorn had been the most important settlement east of Cape Town. But the second boom peaked in 1913, during which year the highest quality feathers cost more than $32 a pound in 2012 prices. Ostrich feathers were outranked only by gold, diamonds and wool among South African exports before World War I. The market completely collapsed in 1914, according to the Chicago Tribune, as a result of the start of World War I, overproduction and the popularity of open-topped cars, which made ostrich feathers hats impractical. 80% of the ostrich farmers went bankrupt back then, but today the industry has recovered and is still the mainstay of Oudtshoorn. We're back on the road, everybody, and now we're heading to the Cango Caves, which is one of South Africa's finest, best known and most popular tourist caves, and it attracts people from all over the world. It is only about a half-hour drive from Oudtshoorn, so you simply must put it on your to-do list when you get to this part of the world.
Hello everyone, we are at the Cango Caves and we're about to go in there. I'm very excited. It is my first time and it is another truly great South African legend. Can't wait to show you.
Hey, we're about to enter the cave and it seems very ominous going deep down in the Earth's crust like this. I'm a bit nervous, to be honest. Anyway, cave paintings and artifacts indicate that the caves were in use throughout prehistory over a very long period during the Middle and later Stone Ages. And here we have an example of some of the people that used to live in this cave. And the cave was rediscovered in modern times in 1780 by a local farmer. He was lowered into the cave with just this tiny little light, a paraffin-fueled light. And you just imagine how scary that must have been. I would never have volunteered to do that. Never in my life. Anyway, oh wow, look at that. This is the first hall, and it is a magnificent formation. Now, the Cango Caves are located in a limestone belt, and limestones were formed by chemical processes about 750 million years ago. Specifically, the caves were formed during the last 20 million years by rainwater seeping through fissures in the limestone. Gradually, the water dissolved the limestone, forming an extensive network of subterranean caverns and tunnels. When the acidic oxygen in the rainwater comes into contact with the calcium carbonate in the limestone, a crystalline solution is formed which hardens and eventually accumulates as stalagmites, stalactites, and flowstones. Okay, now it's off to the second hall, and I'm quite excited because the first one was so incredibly spectacular, and they say the next one is even better. Okay, so let's see what is... Oh, wow, that is... Yes, that is definitely even more spectacular than the first one. What makes these stalagmites so spectacular is that limestone stalagmites and stalactites form extremely slowly, usually less than 10 centimeters every 1,000 years. And radiometric dating has shown that some are over 190,000 years old. So considering all this, what I'm about to tell you is quite upsetting. They used to have big choir and orchestra concerts down here in the caves, because you can imagine it does have amazing acoustics. But they had to stop it in 1994 because they realized that many of the guests would wander into the back of the caves and just break off a piece of a stalactite or a stalagmite for their own souvenir and keeping. You can trust humans to be rubbish and selfish all the time. Ugh. I'm just really glad that they stopped the concerts when they did, and the damage was relatively contained, and the most beautiful formations are still intact for future generations. I have to stay standing here in these caves and, you know, just completely in awe of these formations that took so many years to form. Makes you feel a little bit insignificant, thinking that our existence is only a drop of sand in the bucket of time. Here we are now looking at some of the damage that was done by the concert goers. You can see all those stalactites that were just being broken off carelessly and selfishly. Thank you very much, all you rubbish people. Back in open air, and it's lovely to be breathing fresh air again. And now off to Buffelsdrift Lodge for a lovely afternoon massage right here in the bush, in the open air, COVID friendly. It is a really lovely place here in Oudtshoorn, where you can stay in beautiful chalets next to a beautiful lake that attracts wildlife. And the fresh air is just intoxicating. I cannot wait for my massage, everybody. I can highly recommend that you visit this place when you come to Oudtshoorn. There even is a bush wedding chapel here that you can rent. So what a fabulous little place this is. Okay, now off to our accommodation for the evening, which is a tiny little Airbnb, also just outside of Oudtshoorn, with a beautiful little private pool, and look at that view over the Swartberge. Please do remember to subscribe to my channel if you are enjoying this video, and hit the notification button, that's the bell one, share it with your friends, and hit the like button if you want to make sure that we carry on making fabulous movies like this. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a lovely day, everybody.